Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell.
And I'm Duke Oishi.
In our show tonight, we'll cover two innovation stories that have taken place a few blocks away from each other in Kakaako.
The first was Jelly Week at the Box Jelly on Kamani Street, and the second was our tour of the Holatron factory on Ilaniwai Street.
We visited the Box Jelly during the festivities at Jelly Week, and here's some of the footage we took that week.
Before I get started, I'd like to get a sense of who you are. Maybe if you just respond to a couple questions. How many of you already consider yourself entrepreneurs? Okay. How many of you still have a real job to support your entrepreneurial habit? Even a part-time real job? Okay. How many of you are full-time, 100% committed to your entrepreneurial endeavors? Great. How many of you have had more than one entrepreneurial activity? Well, you all seem to be pretty much on par. People have asked me, how did you get started as an entrepreneur? And, I've thought about all the businesses I'd had throughout my life, and finally it dawned on me when it happened. And I was about 7 years old. And my dad used to give me a $50 every Saturday as my allowance, for doing chores around the house or whatever. And one Saturday, he didn't have a $50, all he had was quarters. And he gave me 2 quarters, and I said, no, I want a $50. Because I really liked those $50. I was actually saving them. I wasn't really spending them on anything. But I really liked that $50. And so he said, no, this 2 quarters are the same thing, equal to 50 cents. It's 50 cents is 50 cents. I said, no, I want a $50. He says, you know what? No more allowance for you. And that's when I became an entrepreneur.
Global Jelly Week 2012 was birthed from European Jelly Week 2011. And what jellies are, they're informal gatherings of people who come together to get work done. They were started in an apartment in New York when people just didn't want to work by themselves, and they decided, hey, let's call my friends, and they did it every other week. And after a while, they decided, hey, let's get a space so we could all meet like this all the time, and that's how co-working was birthed.
I'm jellying over here. Who's coming with me?
Exactly. So that's what a jelly is, and of course we're the box jelly, so we're a jelly in a box.
It's really the essence of where the idea came from of co-working and how co-working came out of jelly, being jelly. So it's with the idea of being open and working with the people in collaboration, and this is why co-working spaces around the world honor Jelly Week.
So what we wanted to do was become a part of this Global Jelly Week, and there were, I think, over 160 spaces around the world that were participating in this Global Jelly Week, and they did so by having events, opening up spaces for free jellying, workshops, and the like. And it was really a chance for us to gear up and really step our game up, get some things together, and I think we learned a lot from hosting Jelly Week about some of our strengths and also some of our weaknesses.
It's good to know both.
Yeah, you need to. Why I think what Jelly Week really represents, though, is kind of like this new wave of ways to work. And it would be one thing if it was just in New York or if it was just in Shanghai or Hawaii, but it's a global phenomenon that is just growing and building and building, and it's really a wave and a movement. And being able to have something like Global Jelly Week really shows that, you know, people all around the world are identifying with a new way of life. And this new way of life is work-live, or we call it work the way you live, where your work life and your life kind of blend together, and you're able to work when you want to work or when you need to work, and also you're able to do the things you want to do, you know, when the time is right. So it's a new way of thinking, and it's enabled by technology. It's the way we live.
Our second adventure into Kakaako was a visit with Charlie Holdaway and a tour of the Holatron Systems factory on Ilaniwai Street, with a demonstration of their advanced pyrotechnic firing systems technology.
This is the kind of light industry that we need to have in Kakaako. Although you wonder how long it'll last when the rail comes. Lanai of Holatron Systems LLC, run by Charlie Holdaway, right here in Kakaako.
We've been incorporated in Hawaii since 2003. With a lot of these receivers, you can individually fire any of 10,000 different devices.
Oh, wow.
Our customers prefer our systems.
Because?
Because they're reliable.
Is it the engineering, the materials, the labor? What is it?
Well, it's the engineering and the materials we choose. You know, everything's made in the USA, and we engineer them very carefully. I can show you an example of one of our typical circuit boards. It's top quality.
If I go to Ground Zero on July 4th, you know, how many units am I going to see? How many people am I going to see?
A typical show would cost about $50,000, and it would involve hundreds of shells. And what you will see in typical shows now that are choreographed to music, which I believe the 4th of July show here is now, they have some kind of a computer panel, and it transmits the commands by wires. They're not normally wireless like our equipment. Mm-hmm. We're still working on getting companies to switch over, and they are slowly. But if it's computer choreographed, then they start running a tape or a CD now. And on one of the tracks, there are cue commands that cause the equipment to fire the show. They actually can show you on your computer screen what the show is going to look like in 3 dimensions. You know, you can pan around, and it's incredible, the technology. It would typically be a crew of a dozen people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work setting up a fireworks show, and it's even more work cleaning up afterwards.
Yeah, sure, sure. Because you have to clean up all the debris and everything.
Yeah, there are racks of mortar tubes, and each one of those tubes has to have a shell loaded into it. And then the shells have to be connected to, they have these strips typically with connectors like these on them. And then those go to cables that lead back to the firing panel. This is the arm switch.
Yeah.
That's the last thing that gets turned on. So first you turn on the power with the arm switch off, and we do what's called a continuity check, which is done from the handheld controller, and that scans through all the receivers and all the devices connected and ensures that there is a valid connection. And then once that's done, then you get everybody out of the area, and typically the pyrotechnic operator, the one with the license, will go around and turn on the arm switches.
And then he gets out of the area.
And he gets out of the
And this stays in the area. This box stays in the area.
This is typically, well, you see how long these wires are. It's typically within about 3 feet of the mortar tube rack. There's this natural distrust of wireless links, especially when it involves explosives. And the way you achieve reliability is by using an encoding scheme that has what they call error checking. So you send packets of data that have digital codes, and then there's another piece of data that comes with it that tells you, and it's called a CRC code. It tells you when you run this data packet through a digital algorithm what number you should get, and it should match the one that was transmitted. And if it doesn't, you ignore
don't get
that
anything.
data. You don't fire that one.
Yeah. You have patents on this kind of stuff?
No, we've tried for a couple patents, but we spent thousands of dollars and we got 3 rejections, and we finally decided that, you know, it's just not worth it. So what we count on is our intellectual property is really in the software. That's our real protection, because without the software, these things are useless. As far as movie special effects, we're just growing like gangbusters in that area, and we sell to 18 different countries now. It's amazing how many movie production companies there are globally. We sell a lot of equipment to Europe and Canada. Canada has a huge movie industry, and Australia, New Zealand, Latin America.
Wow.
Almost all of these are movie special effects applications. There's an organization, this one, ACPO, the Association of Special Effects.
Where art meets science.
Yeah, so they specialize in using high-tech equipment, and I'm still hopeful that we might get a Special Academy Award for technology. We were in the running this year, but we didn't get it, but I'm told that maybe next year.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, what movies have you been in? Do you know?
Yeah, we've been in at least 50 different movies, big ones, some Indiana Jones movies, the remake of War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, and the Amazing Case of Benjamin Button. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, sure I
that
do.
one.
I really like that movie.
Yeah, they used our equipment in that. A gangster movie. They had lots of shooting. They like to use our stuff mostly for bullet hits, and they'll have pocket receivers. I'll show you one in a minute. They're in the actors' pockets, and then they have little explosive charges under their shirt that when the director fires it, it looks like holes appear on the shirt. They do that in Hawaii 5.0 too.
Is your stuff in Hawaii 5.0?
Yeah.
Oh, there's an awful lot of action in Hawaii 5.0.
Yeah, anytime you see bullet hits in there, it's done with our equipment. And
This is the receiver.
Yeah. This has a terminal block. You can connect 6 different devices to this. And then you can bend the antenna any way you want and slip it into a pocket. And then the wires from those would come inside the shirt to the bullet devices. You can have a transmitter like this, for example, and it's got an arm button, so until you press that, it won't fire anything, and this light turns red when it's armed. If I press the 1 button, you see it's firing the 1 output. When I let go, it goes off. If I press the 6 button, it's firing the 6 output.
So you're making tons of money, Charlie?
No, I was going to mention that I'm not getting rich doing this, but it's very satisfying. We are profitable, and we're growing, and my wife has at times accused me of running a hobby instead of a business, but we've always tried to keep our prices affordable, especially for the pyrotechnics industry, because they operate on fairly limited budgets. The movies seem to have more money to spend.
So you know these guys. You're part of the Hollywood scene.
That's what I really like about this business. I love the movie business. So the first 4 outputs are connected to these devices here, which will typically be used to ignite some kind of a device, an explosive or a bullet hit. And these are fired by these handheld controllers. So now that we're connected, I'm going to arm this thing. When you turn it on, it does a self-check. This thing can scan through 10,000 devices, your whole show, and it'll tell you, it'll go until it comes to one that's not connected, and then it'll stop. So now we know everything is connected. We're ready to fire. So I press arm. This light turns red to tell me it's armed. So now, if I want to fire in automatic mode, I can push a button and go into that, or I can just push the fire button and it'll fire once. And each time I hit it, it'll fire the next one. But I'm going to go to automatic mode and fire them all, because that's more fun. So you can set the fire rate anywhere from 1 to 20 shots per second. Right now we're set for 9 shots per second. So now if I hold the fire button down, it'll fire like a machine gun at that rate. You ready? That was 9 shots per second. So
Yeah.
we're shipping a lot of equipment right now, and so we pack everything over there. We have basically 2 workbenches in here, and you can almost tell this is a bench. It's got a lot of projects going on right now. And then, of course, an indispensable part of any business is computers, so we have a couple computers here. This bench over here is where most of our final assembly is done. The work ripples out into the community, and we're trying to make it ripple even farther if we can.
10 years ago, Kakaako was going to include many dreams. A big pharma campus all around the John A. Burns School of Medicine on Ilalo Street, the dream of then Dean Ed Cadman, a huge cancer research center next to the Foreign Trade Zone, the dream of then Director Carl Vogel, a tropical disease institute and regional biosafety laboratory, the dream of then Director Dwayne Gubler, and a Kamehameha School's high-rise Asia-Pacific Innovation Center next to the Gold Bond Building, the dream of Kirk Belsby, then at Kamehameha Schools.
Although a scaled-down version of the cancer center is now being built behind the medical school, none of the other projects have materialized in Kakaako, and it's a great tragedy that we have lost all this time in building a tech and biotech industry in Kakaako and realizing these dreams, while a dozen huge high-rise condominium projects are now moving forward in this area, the heart of our city. That's why it's all the more important that we protect and nurture Kakaako for tech and biotech in the future, and celebrate the remaining indications of technology we find there today.
These 2 adventures are by no means the only points of interest and innovation in Kakaako. We greatly enjoy visiting and exploring the back roads of Kakaako, and there are many other points of interest and innovation, and many of the ThinkTech stories there that are worth bringing to you on ThinkTech on OC16. So stay tuned for more about what's going on in Kakaako.
Now for our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
ThinkTech's 4 to 5 p.m. weekday drive time radio series on KGU 760 AM continues this week, covering business, Asia, tech, energy, the arts, and government. Tune in to 760 AM every weekday at 4 p.m. and raise your awareness on ThinkTech Radio.
On February 23rd, the Hawaii Venture Capital Association and ThinkTech will present a lunch and panel program called Tourism 2012, a high-level look at the status and prospects of the tourism industry in Hawaii after APEC. Sign up for these programs on hvca.org. And now, here's Bill Spencer, president of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association, with this week's Spensation.
You know, we've seen that there's some life in tourism there. Everybody's touting the fact that our tourism numbers are up, and that's good news, but as we've decided before, tourism is not a growth industry. Where we have growth and opportunity is tech and intellectual property and knowledge-based industries that can be exported around the world. But last December, there was a People's Pulse poll which is conducted every year for the last 7 or 8 years. And it's a statewide poll of 700 adults in Hawaii. And they asked a really interesting question, which was, to develop a marketable workforce, do you feel a 2 to 4 year college degree is 1, an absolute necessity, 2, helpful but not a necessity, or 3, simply not necessary? What do you think they said, Jay?
Scary.
It's scary indeed. Based on a comparison to 2006, the answer, an absolute necessity, fell from 46% to 32%. So only a third of the population thinks a college or junior college degree is essential. The helpful answer stayed about the same, 44 to 48%. The shocking answer, not necessary, actually doubled, more than doubled, from 8% in 2006 to 17% just last December. What does this tell us about the people of Hawaii?
Well, I think there's two points to look at to examine it. One is, why do people say that? What's on their minds when they give those answers? And the other thing to look at would be, what does it mean? You know, if people feel this way, how are they going to conduct themselves, and how is that going to affect the state's economy and the state's future? Both scary. So let's look at them one at a time. What do you think? Speculate with me why people would give answers like that.
Well, I think one reason is that the people of Hawaii reflect the nation in the sense that barely 50% of all high school enrollees actually graduate. And of those, only a relatively small fraction go on to college in the first place. So I think the people who were polled here, many of them may in fact have never gone on to college. And that's a function of our service industry-based workforce to begin with. You know, most of the jobs in Hawaii are service-based jobs. They don't pay a lot. They don't require a college education. So I think this in some ways reflects the demographic of our adults.
They think they can get through and have a nice life without the necessity for higher education.
Right.
Which is a little scary in the sense that really isn't true. And you know, to the extent that anyone gets through that way right now in the soft life of the tourism minimum wage jobs, that's not going to last forever. It's not sustainable. So there's going to be a comeuppance on this. You know that going forward. So I think the belief that these answers are based on is a faulty belief.
I think it may also reflect the values that are imparted by the existing education system. I mean, clearly, a place like Punahou, you know, every graduate of that high school, and all of them graduate, as far as I know, go on to college, and mostly in the mainland. But that's clearly not the case in our public system.
Mm-hmm.
So something is lacking in the public system to motivate kids to want to achieve higher education.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to they don't think education's that important, not in their lives and not in the people around them. And that is a pretty narrow way of looking at the world. But going to the world, going to the state, I mean, inherent in this poll, I think, is the notion that it doesn't matter to the state either. It doesn't matter to the people in the state, and it doesn't matter to the state that we have a lot of people with higher education. And the scary thing about that is that the world in general is going to higher education, and especially Asia.
Absolutely.
And you know, no country, no community, no society is going to be able to compete in the 21st century without more and more and more of higher education. So for this poll to reveal so many people who don't put a value on that, and who don't put a value on that for the community, is a very scary effect.
And it's scary for the economy. I mean, our economy, for it to grow, we have to embrace technology and knowledge industries. And you don't become a programmer by playing computer games. You get an education. You get an engineering degree. And that's what it takes to become a techie.
Yeah. So I think we have a problem in terms of the community here, is we're not going to get to be a tech community that way. Whether they recognize it or not, the fact is you have to study to be in technology. You have to have special skills. And if you don't care about those skills, you won't achieve those skills. And if we don't have people, a critical mass of people with those skills, we're not going to have a technology industry. We're going to have a tourism industry, which does not require great skill. So if this is a statement of the future of Hawaii, we better do a wake-up call.
Well, I think the governor is on the right track by putting some emphasis on early childhood education. Because if you can get kids motivated at an early age and keep that fire burning, there's hope. I think the kids now in high school that have already given up can't be saved.
Well, you know, it shows you that the most important thing you can learn in high school is how important it is to do well in high school and to do well in school and to go forward. And if they teach them nothing else, they got to teach them that. But apparently they're not teaching them that.
Doesn't seem to be happening, Jay.
Yeah. Okay, we got to follow this issue. Don't let go on this, Bill. We've got to raise public awareness on the importance of education.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. Thank you, Bill.
All right.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Miko on Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is the Senior Executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Polymers, a tech company in Hawaii. Okay, Duke, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Duke does. For additional times, check out OC16.tv. Right, Duke?
You bet, Jay. For lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor or volunteer and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Jay Fidell. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
And I'm Duke Oishi. Aloha, everyone.